Hey, hello everyone. Hello, happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 6th. And on this episode of Tuesdays with Tina, we're going to be discussing blood pressure, why we take it, and some tips to go along with it. And I'm happy to have you here. I'm coming on a little earlier than I normally do for a session, but that's because I got done with seeing students, working with students a little earlier today, and I'm going to be going out for a lovely evening out. So this is when I got to do it. So I hope you are all enjoying your Tuesday, that your week has been going well, and I was really fun getting to connect up with some of the dental hygiene students at the Maui Dental Hygiene Program last week, and I'm looking forward to this weekend working with some of the hygienists in the state of Georgia, helping them get their anesthesia certification. So, been pretty exciting. All right, so like I said, we're going to be talking about blood pressure, why we take it, some tips to make it happen, and then we'll continue on from there. And hello Facebook friends over here, and hello Instagram fam up there. Happy to see you guys. As a reminder, you can also tell your friends if they missed it. Does get posted on YouTube. Eventually I get it done. All right. Sorry, y'all, my brain is tired. And one of those moments, I'm kind of going off my thought process here, but one of those moments, when you don't want to show up, but you have to anyways. You ever feel like that? And have those moments where you're like, I don't want to show up. I don't want to show up. And you have to kind of go, all right, how do I make this happen? And that's when you just go into, all right, I'm here because other people need me to be here and not because I want to be here. Right. Don't you ever have those moments? So, yes, I'm tired and I'm having one of those moments. But back to blood pressure and what are we talking about? Hello, Instagram friends up there. Hello. Happy to see you. Thanks for saying hi. All right. So, blood pressure, and I know, like in dentistry, we take it and we're kind of like, yep, I took it, wrote it down, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully, we're taking it on all of our patients. Maybe you're not, and if you aren't, that's okay. You're no different than many other people. But one of the things that we do, we want to remember when we're taking our blood pressure, is that it does help with many different many different scenarios. It's really a screening for us to help identify some health issues for our patients. It's a screening device. One, we can advocate for them if we see a blood pressure reading that is particularly elevated. Oh, and by the way, it's February. Did you know that February is Heart Health Month, especially for women's heart health? Right? So I should have wore red because it's Heart Health Month. So February is Heart Health Month, which is also what inspired this topic today. So we take blood pressure for screenings. It'll help us identify particular aspects that could be helpful for our patients in regards to their cardiac health. It's important. Are you elevated blood pressure, especially really elevated blood pressure, is one of the number one signs that we can identify for a patient who is at high risk for a stroke. So just think about that when that happens and you have a patient with an extremely high blood pressure, that you might want to be, ooh, did you know continual high blood pressure can put you at higher risk for a major cardiac event? And a stroke is a major cardiac event. It's part of the cardiovascular system, right? So we have to remember that. So it does help with that. But even what we can do and related to dentistry is it helps us screen for things like sleep apnea, right? When a patient has elevated blood pressure, we might go, okay, they've got elevated blood pressure. I need to take a little bit more of a deeper dive, deeper look into perhaps their oral cavity, looking for signs and other symptoms of somebody having sleep apnea. Because that is a big thing that we're doing in dentistry right now, right? Is we are not only just caring for the oral tissues related to the dentition, but we're also looking at the oral tissues and how it relates to the rest of the systemic health, including sleep apnea. Okay, so there's that. Other thing is that it's really common that we will see, especially now that marijuana is legalized, we're starting to see that information come along and see our patients have an elevated blood pressure if they are marijuana users. So that's kind of an interesting little fact to know, is that if your patients are marijuana users, their blood pressure will be higher. The other thing is with marijuana use, just remember there can be some difficulties with local anesthesia because of the receptor sites with marijuana use, and local anesthesia can make some anesthetic a little bit more challenging. That's what they're discovering in some of the American Society of Anesthesiology, some discussions on how marijuana use impacts that. Oh, I'm going to scroll for a moment. Sorry. Read my ASA journal today, and there's a lot of research coming forward in medicine and applications in medicine of doing regional anesthesia using ultrasound guided needle placement, which is really cool. And I know that that trend is starting to come up in dentistry. So be on the lookout. We're probably going to see some of that really becoming a big thing, probably maybe within the next 5 years in dentistry, using ultrasound to guide our needle placement, especially for the IA nerve block. So anyways, I segued, but I thought that was really cool when I was reading about that. And for the rest of medicine, when they're doing localized blocks, that's something they're looking at. Okay, so why we take blood pressure, we're screening, just general screening, helps us identify potential individuals with sleep apnea, cardiovascular issues, stroke, major, huge red flag if somebody has elevated blood pressure, that they are at risk for a stroke. Other thing is it helps us with dental anxiety identification. Somebody might say, oh, I'm never nervous until I come to the dental office, and you're going to see that. We can also use it as it's kind of a story for our patients, right? When they come in and we've taken their blood pressure every 3, 4, 6 months that they've come in, and we can start to see slowly but surely it's getting higher and higher and higher. We can advocate for them saying, Mr. Smith, last time you were here, or Mrs. Anderson, these last few times you've been here, we're noticing a trend with your blood pressure getting higher and higher. So some of those things to be looking at, okay? All right. The other thing about blood pressure, and we never want to have a medical emergency within our office, but it does give us that baseline. You don't have to be giving anesthesia to have a medical emergency in your office, okay? But if you have a baseline blood pressure, it helps you know just how far off the patient's blood pressure has gone in the event they have a medical emergency. It really is very helpful data for the incoming emergency technicians, if we can tell them what their baseline when they came in, their blood pressure was 117 over 62, and now they are 217 over 111, right? That's a pretty significant, that's a horrible number. That second number is horrible. Making numbers up in my head, but just to give you an example. All right, so you're probably going, Tina, can we have some tips on how to make them accurate? And of course, I'd love to give you tips. And these tips come from the American Heart Association when doing blood pressure. What are ways that we can get the most accurate blood pressure reading? And I'm telling you, one of them, believe it or not, is an empty bladder. So if your patient says they need to use the restroom before they come back, please let them, because an empty bladder will help lower their blood pressure, which is great because we don't want reasons for them to not have to have an appointment. And if they have to use the restroom, why don't you use the restroom too, right? As dental professionals, we can have a pretty full bladder and still push through. So let's give ourselves a break, friends, and get that too. So an empty bladder, using the left arm, right? Use that left arm. And that is where we're going to gain the most accuracy. Now, if your patient happens to have an issue where they've had surgery on their left arm, you can definitely go to the right arm, but you're going to have the most accuracy on the left arm. So tips for accuracy, empty bladder, left arm, uncross your patient's legs, right? Oftentimes they'll sit in the chair and they'll be like, have their legs crisscrossed applesauce. So go ahead and remind your patient to uncross their legs. Ideally, if they can be out flat on the floor, but in the dental chair, we just usually have them right out. And I know we're not identifying hypertension. We're not identifying high blood pressure and diagnosing that somebody has that. This is really a screening method. So we do want to be as accurate as possible when we're doing this. Other thing is, don't talk. We shouldn't be talking, and we shouldn't have our patients talking either. So tell them, say, okay, we're just going to take some quiet time so we can get an accurate blood pressure. Close your eyes, pretend you're in your happiest place in the world. Maybe that's Disneyland or Disney World, or the mountaintop, or at the beach, or at a lake, or, snuggling their grandbabies. Whatever it is that brings them joy and love and peace, tell them to imagine that they're in that space. And then, of course, we don't want to hear this, and I know for a fact that any of the dental hygiene students I've ever worked with don't want to hear this, but a manual blood pressure cuff is going to be your most accurate, where we actually take out the Velcro armband that wrap it around their arm, get the stethoscope, pump up the sphygmomanometer. I always have to look at the word. You friends, I am a real person and I struggle with words. Sphygmomanometer, right? Anyways, you want to make sure that you have that available to pump up and feel for that pulse as you're pumping. See if you can feel that pulse go away. once it goes away, pump up a little bit more, and then really listen to hear those heartbeats, okay? Yes, somebody says breathing. Yes, make sure that everybody's still breathing. We do want to, that is actually one of the vital signs we want to check is our patient's breath rate. Believe it or not, that does tell us a lot about our patient as well. So we do want to make sure you are assessing that, reminding your patient to just have calm breaths. We don't need them hyperventilating or anything like that. The other thing with a manual cuff is that your patient cannot see the numbers. Oftentimes, especially with the wrist cuff or the automated arm cuff, right, the display is so big and huge and it's sitting out there easy for our patients to see because they are designed for us to take on ourselves, right? It's designed literally so that we can take blood pressure on ourselves and see those readings. Now, have you ever done that to yourself, taken your blood pressure and you're sitting there and you're watching the numbers and you're watching it and the numbers go higher and higher and higher and higher and you're like, holy crackerjacks, it's up to 180 and it hasn't stopped yet? Like, that is stressful, and that could be just enough to kind of give that little extra oomph of stress. So if you have an automated cuff, do use it properly. One, make sure it's calibrated, make sure your batteries are full, because low batteries will give you an accurate reading. But see if you can do it in a way where your patient cannot see those numbers. And that will also be very, very helpful too. All right, to recap, ways to keep tips for your blood pressure is empty bladder, left arm, manual cuff. Let's not talk and keep those legs uncrossed. Okay. All right, friends. I appreciate you being here with me, especially in those moments when I squirreled off. And as a reminder, as I just mentioned on my own, but if you ever have those moments where you're just like, okay, I would really just curl up and rather take a nap than to be here in this office right now or here doing this X, Y, or Z thing, is just take a moment and pause and remember why you chose to be there, and then it'll all come through. And I think I might go take a nap now. Thank you so much for appreciating that. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate all the support you all give and the questions that you reach out. And I'm going to go through and edit some of the podcasts, the RDH Coast to Coast podcast, and I'm going to put some of these Tuesdays with Tina up on YouTube as well. So I will see you guys next Tuesday. And who knows what the topic will be. If you have a thought process of what sounds great to you, reach out and I'll see if I can pull it up for you. All right. All right, friends, have a great day. Bye-bye.